The main villain in Godzilla and Kong Supernova does not point to Space Godzilla, and I truly don't understand how anyone thinks it's actually him. Let's get one thing out of the way. The Toho version of Space Godzilla and the Monsterverse version of Space Godzilla, whenever that may be, two completely different continuities. A lot of people basing it off of this binary code saying, oh, it's Godzilla and Kong, watch this space. And then in some instances, Godzilla being said after space, which then confirms Space Godzilla, but it's not even really confirmed that that's the case. It's probably a continuation to the binary code that we couldn't see because the message pops up on the screen, and that's it. And then individuals saying, oh, what's the title? Supernova. What does Supernova do? It creates a black hole. And what came from a black hole? None other than Space Godzilla. But what you all don't realize is there's a lot to lead up to that to cause that to happen. Mothra going into space, dropping G cells into a black hole, creating Space Godzilla. During the era of the Great War, there was a Godzilla that had wings. There were multiple Godzillas. So the possibility of little Godzilla being there is very prominent. I'm going to be completely honest. When you all say this, do you actually hear yourself? Like, genuinely? Nothing that has been shown in the Monsterverse thus far has even remotely proved that Space Godzilla could ever show up in the Monsterverse. When has there ever been a mention of a black hole existing within the Monsterverse, aside from the fact that, it's just a natural occurrence in space? When has there ever been an instance that Mothra went to space, had G-cells on her, let alone had G-cells being a huge thing within the Monsterverse? I've said this before, the Space Godzilla everyone else is thinking about will not be the exact same that we see within the Monsterverse. But based off of how everyone is phrasing it, you're hoping that it's the exact same way that it is in Toho as it is in the Monsterverse. And what we have so far is nowhere near to anything related to Space Godzilla. Do you have any idea how much has to happen for this to happen? There is a lot. It's a process. If we ever do get a Space Godzilla, it's not going to be the Space Godzilla that you and I both know. Not this thing at all. It's going to be a pseudo Godzilla looking thing that somewhat resembles Space Godzilla, but isn't Space Godzilla. And I can tell you this much, that's not going to go over well with fans. Ooh, I promise you it's not. And knowing that Godzilla and Kong Supernova is a film that they cannot screw up, do they really have the option to pull something like that? If they want the Monsterverse to keep going, they cannot screw this film up. And personally, castrate me if you want. Space Godzilla's too early. This is way too damn early. Right now, in the Monsterverse, there is nothing, I quote, literally nothing to justify this guy even being here. And bringing him in so early is going to do so much detrimental damage you have no idea. Especially if everyone basing it off of how it was in Toho expects it to be the same way in the Monsterverse. Oh yeah, no, we're cooked. I can promise you this and this are not the same. There is so much conflicting between the two to justify them being the same that I cannot believe it. I can't. Logically speaking, it's one of three things. Like I said, a pseudo Space Godzilla that isn't Space Godzilla, Gigan, or an original character created by Legendary. Now I know what you're thinking, Gigan, well that's a bit far out there. How would that be any different than Space Godzilla? Well, using the same logic that Space Godzilla fans have, saying that the title is Supernova, the middle of the R has a red dot. Who else has that? None other than Gigan. Also, the fact that Gigan is just one of those characters that just shows up. Both him and Ghidorah back in the day in the Toho era showed up because the Nebulans said they wanted to create the perfect world, using Earth to subjugate in order to do so. So Ghidorah and Gigan versus Godzilla and Anguirus, and Godzilla and Anguirus ended up winning. How am I going to sit here and say it's 100% Gigan? Hell no. Nor am I going to say it's 100% Space Godzilla. There is still very little to justify either of these two even showing up in the Monsterverse. Which again makes this so vague. People automatically assume that it's Space Godzilla based off of these small little nitpick things that people found, when we really don't have any information to confirm that that's the case. So right now, as it stands, everyone is jumping to conclusions. Nothing has been confirmed, and we're literally just going off of hearsay. We are nitpicking different things here and there to try to justify one of these two being a thing. So until more information comes out, it's really up in the air. It is. But if it is the Space Godzilla that we are all thinking of, it might just flop because, again, nothing to justify that.